Hi, my name's Barbara Harrington. Today's date is April 3rd. This is the Part 2 lab of our carbohydrate fermentation test. Last night about at 8:30 p.m. we inoculated these vials and we're supposed to observe them 12 hours later to see color change. At 8:30 this morning when I checked, there was color change, but these two last vials were like half red, half orange. So I let it incubate for another 4 hours. So it's 12:30 right now when we are observing these vials. The ones that are yellow are for our positive fermentation. So we have the S. cerevisiae with the glucose, that's positive yellow, and I also do not see any air bubbles, so there was no gas produced in our Durham test tube. Our S. epidermis, I can't tell if these are really air bubbles or not, but it did have positive fermentation. There are somewhat of air bubbles, like I said. This is for the glucose, but not certainly positive on that. It's not like at the top of the test tube. This is our S. cerevisiae number 2 for the fructose, has the positive fermentation. Definitely see the air bubbles in the Durham test tube in this one, so it did produce gas. Our number 2 of our S. epidermis is the fructose, and I see some air bubbles, but it's not as apparent as the number 2 S. cerevisiae, but it did have the positive fermentation with the yellow. Now, like what I said earlier, was this test tube originally at 8 a.m. was like half red. Because it wasn't a full color change, I let it incubate for another 4 hours. Now it's kind of this orange tinge, so it's really hard to determine if it is positive for fermentation. I'm going to say it is, because it gave us this orange hue now. And then it also had air bubbles in the Durham test tube, so positive for gas production, and that's with the mannitol. And then this is also our mannitol with the S. cerevisiae. This one, a few hours ago, was more orange. It still is more orange, as you can see, than these yellows. So I'm going to also go with the positive fermentation on this, and then it also has some air bubbles in the Durham test tube. So I'm going to also say that it did produce gas. Thanks for tuning in this week. It was really interesting to do this experiment, and I'll see you next week.